151 teaching staff members coming from 165 schools. These 165 schools are 26 kindergartens and childcare centers, 80 primary schools, 56 secondary schools, and 3 special schools. In the past 7 days, there are 63 schools with at least 2 cases. We recommend the following schools to suspend classes for 1 week. Is in Pingshek, Sungi Xiuhe. There are 3 students in the past few days in class 4D that have been confirmed. So there are 24 schools in class 4D. So for this school, they have to suspend face-to-face classes for 1 week. In relation to the St. Stephen's School, there were 5 cases in 5Y, and 1 is share the same dormitory room, and there's also another student. After yesterday, we received another 3 cases from the same dormitory. They are in other rooms. So altogether on that floor, including the previous 6 cases, there are altogether 9 cases. For that floor, there are 61 students. For the other 52 students, they have to stay either at home or in a facility for quarantine. In relation to the FDBWAC Toho Secondary School in Kwun Tong, it was reported there are 4 cases in 2C. We recommend that this class should suspend their face-to-face classes for a week. We have another 2 cases reported. Altogether, there are 6. In relation to St. Francis Xavier School, Chunwan, the basketball team, there were 7 cases yesterday. We've asked them to suspend the activity and for the students to be quarantined. We now have 3 additional cases. Altogether, there are 10 cases in this basketball team. In relation to variants, for BA.2.12.1 Omicron imported cases, there is a slight increase. Altogether, we have 204. Local cases, suspected BA.2.12.1, there are a few more. Altogether, 7 additional cases. 2 of them, family members with previous cases. One is Shunlei Estate and the Shunlei Discipline Service Quarters. The other one lives in Lamwan Bundao. And there are also 3 groups with no known source. One lives in Chun Seng Hui, Block 7 in Chunwan, a male, 25-year-old. So far, we can't identify the source. There is also another one. 2 of them living in Gongwan Hoting, Block 7. One 79-year-old female and one 48-year-old female. There are also 2 living in Hing Tai House, Tai Hing Estate, a 6-year-old girl and a 57-year-old male. Apart from the suspected BA.2.12.1, there is another one. It's a suspected BA.4 or 0.5 case, that is, it carried L452R. At FedEx Express at the airport, the patient worked. The patient is subject to daily RAT. On the 18th of June, the PCR was positive with a CT value of 27 to 28. He works at the Asia Aviation office. He mainly works at the office but would time to time go to the apron for inspections. His colleagues are so far negative. in relation to the place he lives in and places he's visited for meals, we will impose a compulsory testing notice over the incubation period. On the 16th, 17th, 18th, he went to Pan Asia Canteen in that center. He's also been to Ban Hui Bing Sat in Qingyi. That's the morning at around 10 on the 18th. He lives in Tuen Mun. Ga Chai Li. The eateries, the workplaces will be under a compulsory testing notice. So far, we have not identified any linked cases. That's all for my report today.
報告一。
Now over to Dr. Ho to report on the situation with regard to the HA. 509 confirmed patients are still being hospitalized, and 77 patients are the newly added patients. And for those who have to go to the isolation facilities, 163 are now in the isolation wards, and 13 are now in the secondary isolation wards, and 132 patients are now in North Lantau, Hong Kong Infection Control Center, and a total of 58 are newly added cases. And yesterday, 3 more patients have been reported to be critical, and 1 patient is now in a serious condition. And for those who are being hospitalized, 15 who are in critical condition, and also 10 are in serious condition, and 3 critical patients are now in ICU receiving treatment. And yesterday, 1 more 64-year-old female passed away, and she's not from the care homes, and she has also had 2 doses of the jab, and she is a lung cancer patient, and unfortunately is spread to her brain and also to her spine. And she already started hospice care in May, and on the 19th of June, she started to have fever, and after the rapid test, it was tested positive, and subsequently, very rapidly, she was admitted to hospital, but then her condition deteriorated rapidly, and she passed away subsequently, and she passed away on the 21st of June at 7:30 a.m. During the past day, 73 patients recovered, and including 60 patients who have been discharged. In the 5th wave of the epidemic, 51,403 patients have recovered. Out of those, 51,019 have already been discharged. And since early 2020, a total of 63,783 patients have recovered, and 63,399 patients have already been discharged. And 1 patient, during the screening in hospital, was confirmed positive, and 6 patients in the same ward have been classified as close contacts, and for the HA, 23,948 staff members have been confirmed, and 23,789 staff members have already returned to work. So it's now the Q&A session. Please identify yourself and the agency you represent before asking questions. I'm from TVB. First of all, I'd like to ask about the Ping Shek Xun Gate Primary School. There were 3 cases, and they are in the same class, primary 4. So why is it that the entire school has to suspend classes? And also for the suspected BA 0.4 and 0.5 local cases, so according to your assessment, have they got to do with any imported cases, or is it that you're sure that they are locally infected cases? And also, basically, I've also seen some press reports saying that at the Macau-Hong Kong-Zhuhai Bridge yesterday, there were several hundred tourists. When they crossed the border, the test result was not sure. So can you confirm whether or not this is the case, and how many visitors have been stuck? And also, have they gone through any further tests, and what's the result? And also, have you checked with the company responsible for the test, and will there be penalties? And also, I'd like to ask the HA. Yesterday, there was power suspension in NT West. There were patients who had to be transferred because their conditions were critical. So can you update the figure? How many people were involved during the transfer? Well, yesterday you talked about the CNMA primary school. It's just a class that was suspended. It's class 4B. There were 3 cases, and that class has to be suspended. And for the suspected BA.4, BA.5, that was a person working at the airport, and he's from the high-risk group, and he never departed from Hong Kong, and therefore is suspected to be an imported case, and there is a chance that he got infected during his work at the airport. But then, given the fact that he has no contact with other visitors, so mostly he would be in the apron, and he might be passing through the apron from time to time, and therefore we will be looking around to see if there are any people nearby who might be infected. And you refer to the Hong Kong Macau Zhuhai Bridge Hong Kong border checkpoint. And we just issued a press release to explain the situation. So you may want to refer to that press release for the details. With regard to the Tuen Mun Hospital, Pok Ai Hospital, and also the Tin Shui Wai Hospital at around 7 p.m. yesterday, well, power supply was unstable, and Pok Ai Hospital did have backup power supply, and it was immediately activated. And while the power was disrupted, well, for critical equipment and also the A&E department, and also for the isolation ward for COVID patients, in fact, the operation was all normal. And for the services, basically they remain normal. And then for the NT-West cluster, and also they work together with the EMSD staff, and they work overnight to check all the facilities. And for the cluster patients, the services already resumed to normal. And yesterday, in fact, there was a patient who required an emergency operation, and he has to be transferred to Pok Ai Hospital in order to undergo the operation, and the patient's condition is stable. Next, the lady seated next to him. Thank you. I'm from Now TV. Well, I have a question. Well, you talk about the St. James Settlement Fuk Kwan Gui cluster. Well, you talk about their activity at Nga Zui Tin Day. So what kind of activity was that? Did they engage in any play, or what activity was that? And also for the Asian Air Cargo Center or air freight terminal, you said that people, he was just moving around in the center. So what kind of ventilation system is that? Will there be any cluster of infection in that area? Well, it's a day activity center, so it's operated by St. James Settlement, and Nga Zui Tin Day is a day activity center, and normally it runs the whole day, and they would be engaging in full day activity, and therefore there would be a lot of contacts, and therefore for people who have been there, they would also have to undergo compulsory tests. And then for the air freight terminal, we are still doing investigation, and obviously they are in the high-risk group, and they have to do daily RAT tests, and we would also require them to undergo compulsory tests. Next, the lady here.
Dr. Chang.
Could you please introduce yourself?
I'm RTHK English News. So because Hong Kong have been seeing 1,000 cases for about a week, how long do you foresee this to continue? And do you expect local cases to go above 2,000 soon? And the second question is for Dr. Ho. So because CLP says it's using alternative power sources for now, and that power supply may be unstable. So how does this affect the current hospital services? And also, are there any contingency plan to prevent similar disruptions in the future? Thank you.
We are seeing a slow increase, gradual increase in number of cases recently, and there has been no signs of decreasing in the past few days. So we expect the cases will going up and may exceed 2,000 in the near future. So I think still the most important is to monitor the hospital admission figure, severe and death cases. So far, we have not observed any obvious increase in the proportion in the actual number.
For Tuen Mun Hospital, Pok Ai Hospital, and Tin Shui Wai Hospital, since last night around 7 o'clock, the power supply, the electrical supply was not stable. So, and all the hospital has a backup electrical supply, and then it was automatically activated when the supply wasn't stable. So during the supply issue, all the ward, the medical equipment, the A&E, and also the isolation ward were all function normally. So and together with the EMSD and hospital BSS staff, and they check all the supply and also facilities last night, and all the functions remain normal this morning.
下一題。
Next question. Any questions? The gentleman at the back. I'm from Ming Pao. I'd like to ask about the Wan Chai Sing James's Settlement Daycare Center. There were some activities. Can you tell us what activities they are? Will people take off their masks? For the daycare center, there are 6 cases. Well, apart from the resident, who are the others? For Kun Tong, there is a care home with multiple infections of residents. What's the source? In relation to St. Stephen's College, Class 5Y. So you said that there are 9 cases on the same floor. So how many cases are there in the whole school, including students and staff members? You said that there was a spread in the dormitory and other classes are affected. Yes, last night it was said that there was a patient undergoing emergency operation at the Tuen Mun Hospital but had to be transferred. Transferred to where? What was the procedure? Have you made an assessment as to which are the countries with more cases? Do you think that because students are coming back to Hong Kong, that explains the increase in cases? Today, an expert advised that there was some transmission in hotels. Would you consider using isolation or quarantine facilities in the community for arrivals? You're talking about the care home. St. Stephen's College Dormitory, actually. They are people who live on the same floor. There are 5 such cases. For the others that are not from the same class, for the additional cases, they're mostly infected in the dormitory. It's affected other classes, but for previous cases, there were no new cases that have affected other classes. These are mainly from the dormitory cases, 5 from 5Y, altogether 9 of them now. We'll monitor the situation in other classes to see if there is any transmission. For those who stay at the dormitory, they have to be quarantined. The patient you mentioned yesterday, it wasn't halfway through the operation when the person was transferred. It was before that when the procedure was transferred to Pok Oi Hospital. It went well and the patient is in a stable condition. I'd like to ask about the suspected BA.4 case at the airport. Why do you think it's a local infection? Do you know about the source? Does it mean that there is a transmission chain of BA4 in relation to the anomaly in the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridge testing contractor? It's not the first time. Would you suspend their work? The suspected BA4 or 5 case, well, the patient had no travel history. That's why we think that it is a local case. The source might be related to imported cases because that person works at the airport and is exposed to higher risk. So it doesn't mean that there is a transmission chain in the community. Is someone local without a travel history is currently suspected to be BA4 or 5, we can't make a decision because we're still waiting for a full genome sequence analysis. Well, previously there was a BA.5 suspected case who worked at the airport with unknown source. So we think that it may be related to imported cases. This case is similar to that one. In relation to that contractor, we have taken them to task to carry out follow-up work and an investigation. We are awaiting the result of the investigation. I'm from Hong Kong Economic Times. I'd also like to ask about Sunrise. Well, you talk about you talk about the source. Is it human error or other cases? In relation to the 10 cases in St. Francis Xavier School, are they from different classes? And the classes, have they suspended face-to-face classes? St. Stephen's College, you talk about the same floor. Did you obtain any environmental samples? Is there an outbreak? How many cases are there and how many classes? And the 9 people from the dormitory, are they from different classes? Would they be sent away for quarantine or will they stay at the dormitory? In relation to environmental contamination and sample, we are aware that some experts have paid the site a visit, but we don't know the details. In relation to the basketball team, the 10 people came from 9 classes. So far, no other classes have to have their face-to-face classes suspended because of the suspected transmission chain. St. Stephen's College, they have been sent away for quarantine. We'll see if their home is suitable. Otherwise, they will be sent to community quarantine center. I'm from AM 730. I'd like to ask about the apron case at the airport. You said that that person might have just walked past the apron. And what is the chance of contact with people in the local community? St. Stephen's College, 5Y. And there was an outbreak at the dormitory. For the other 4 cases, are they other classes? For Sunrise Diagnostics, for the hundreds of cases that are verified to be negative, would these people be sent to quarantine center or are they just staying where they are? What's the practice of test results that is not negative? For the Pok Oi Hospital, what's the procedure? What was the delay before the operation started? Were there other people who are affected because that patient's been transferred to Pok Oi for an operation? Yesterday, we talked about 5 cases of 5Y, and there is someone from another class. It's a 6th case, a roommate of someone from 5Y. For the additional cases, they are from 3 other classes in the third grade. They are from the same dormitory, same floor. That's why we think that there is a transmission. Sunrise Diagnostic, we don't know about the actual details. We understand that upon verification, there are only 3 that are positive. We think that Sunrise will be asked 3 positive and 9 undetermined. They will be tested again. A sample will be obtained from them at home for verification. Well, that's the test result upon verification done at the laboratory, but we would like to be sure.
平機評
Well, for the apron issue, well, mostly he would be taking some cargo from the airplane on the apron. So normally there would not be any infection, but then we did have previous cases. Normally they would just pass through one another. If there are others working nearby, but then according to his recollection, there was no one nearby, but then we will still check further. And then for the Parkway Hospital, because of this transfer, there were no other operations that had been affected. But then for the details of this operation, I think it's related to the privacy of the patient. All right. Well, actually, they had to take the original sample for further testing. So initially, they did the test on the sample and it was not certain. And then subsequently, they did another test and it was found that only 3 were confirmed positive. And then for the others, they were not, they were undetermined. And then for those whose results were not sure or certain, we asked Sunrise Diagnostic to take another sample from the individuals concerned in order to do further testing. The individuals have already returned home.